Time James walked into the boxing gym, he felt completely out of place. The air smelled like sweat and old leather, and the rhythmic sounds of gloves hitting heavy bags filled the room. Around him, experienced fighters moved with precision. Fast hands, powerful strikes, controlled footwork. James. He could barely throw a proper punch. His coach, a grizzled man with years of fights behind him, watched as James took his first swings at the heavy bag. His punches were weak, sloppy. He was trying too hard, throwing wild shots with no control. The coach sighed and shook his head. "Forget all that fancy stuff," he said. "You're gonna learn one thing, the jab." James frowned. Just one punch? That didn't seem like enough. But the coach didn't care about his doubts. 1,000 jabs a day, he ordered. Left hand only. No right hooks, no uppercuts. Just the jab. So, James began. At first, it felt ridiculous. He stood in front of the heavy bag, throwing the same punch over and over. His arm got sore. His wrist ached. The motion felt stiff, awkward. He kept glancing around the gym, watching other fighters throw combinations, move fluidly, do things he wanted to do. Meanwhile, he was stuck with one boring punch. Day after day, it was the same routine. 1,000 jabs. His knuckles bruised. His shoulder burned. He started questioning if this was even worth it. "Why can't I move on to something else?" he asked his coach after a particularly frustrating session. The coach smirked. "Because you haven't mastered it yet." James gritted his teeth and kept going. Weeks passed. Something changed. His jab was getting faster, sharper. His footwork adjusted naturally. His body knew where to be without him thinking about it. The bag moved differently when he hit it now. There was power behind it. One day, the coach called him into the ring for sparring. James felt nervous. He had barely practiced anything besides his jab. How was he supposed to fight? The first round started. His opponent was faster, more experienced. James tried to dodge, to move, but everything felt overwhelming. Then, instinct took over. His opponent stepped in. James snapped out a jab without thinking. It landed clean, snapping the other fighter's head back. For a brief second, the entire gym went silent. James barely understood what had just happened. But his coach smiled.